Welcome, my name's David Bailey, and on today's episode I'm joined by a friend of mine, Stephen Harvey. He is a celebrity life coach and he's worked with many famous people, including Roger Federer, Serena Williams, Hugh Jackman, to name but a few. Thanks for being here, Steve.
Hi David, it's great to be here.
Great. So if we could begin by talking a little bit about what exactly is the kind of work that you do and how does it help people?
I think I help people just basically to make sense of their story and to see that there's a gift in every situation. I think oftentimes, we've never been taught how to investigate a story. So it left one option, we believed it. And then we go to war over those stories, and it's been evident throughout time, and it's evident in present time as well. If you just take a look at this pandemic, and you'll see the stories for the vaxxers and the anti-vaxxers, and who would they be without the stories? Maybe they would meet one another for the first time, but they don't. And whether it's on social media or whether it's in person, it's a war zone, just because someone has a different story than you. And so I discovered over the years of working in the wellness arena that it was a missing piece of the puzzle, that people had never been taught how to investigate the stories. And therefore you would see the suffering again and again and again. They may go and have a temporary relief. They go have a coaching session or a counseling session or maybe even a bodywork session. And they feel good for that hour or maybe a day or two afterwards. But then the trigger comes right back again. And oftentimes they were mistakenly believing that trigger was something from outside, when the reality was, it's an inside job, but only 100% of the time. And so because it's an inside job, then if we're creating the problem, then obviously we can create the solution. And I really realized that problem we're creating was, we were writing the script. We're writing the script just now about what's going to happen in an hour from now, 2 days from now, a year from now with this pandemic. But if we rewind that to we're sitting there with a pen in our hand and we realize, I've got a blank canvas here and I can write any script I want. So why do we choose to write this fear, worry, and anxiety about the future? Why don't we write down the future that we want to have? And I think part of the reason we don't is because of old programming. The stories that you grow up with of, whether it's well-intended parents giving advice or, authority figures. I hear the word of, who do you think you are?
Yeah.
Don't forget where you come from. You can't do that, and so I think this is where a lot of the programming comes into people's mind-body system, that I would love to do that, but it's all those buts that we've never been, as I said, taught how to investigate them to see if they're even true, And if we could change those buts into yes and, then the whole future becomes much more joyful and abundant. Versus this, horror movie that we're playing in our mind of what could go wrong, And so as I've traveled the world, and this is the 11th country I've lived in now, and I've worked with people from all walks of life, from, A-list celebrities to world leaders to multi-billionaires to, stay-at-home moms. And the one thing I see in common is that nobody's been taught how to investigate their story, and there's no new stories. They're all recycled. And so it doesn't matter if I'm, talking to someone who I think and most of the world would think has got absolutely everything.
Mm.
And yet they're not feeling at peace. They're not content because of the story, you know, and they keep looking outside for something, the next, you know, $500 million deal to give them that sense of fulfillment, or the next luxury yacht or private jet. And it's fleeting. It lasts for a couple of minutes and then it's gone, and they're right back to the same energy vibration again. And again, it's the same, you know, with people who are struggling financially. And yet the interesting thing is I've worked with people who I would believe are some of the poorest people on the planet. I mean, I spent time in Cambodia, and 46% of the population in Cambodia survive on less than $2 a day. And I remember going from working in Cambodia to working in Switzerland with a super, super wealthy family. And I realized that the people who I perceived were rich were extremely poor. And the people who I perceived as being extremely poor were the richest people I've ever met. And so, again, where does that come from?
Mm.
What's that story? You know, the folks in Cambodia, they were at peace with what is. And it wasn't a lot, but they had love and gratitude in their hearts for what is. Versus, you know, the super wealthy people who were not at peace at all, you know, and had kept looking for it outside. And so that's always been intriguing to me to see why do we end up like that? And why do we continue to go through those same patterns of creating the same story again and again and again? And I think it's because we haven't been taught. We just simply haven't been taught. And so we keep reacting again and again and again. When someone rings a bell, we salivate, you know. And so I think my mission is to help people, you know, to make sense of that story, to investigate it, to see if it's even true, and to find that peace within, that it's not out there at all, you know.
And so these stories, as you put it, and like they're from childhood, they're from parents or caregivers or schooling or things that happen to us in those formative years. And I know from my experience, sometimes people don't even recognize, or most of the time they don't recognize them as stories. They just think they're reality. So how is it that you help people investigate their own story when maybe they don't even see it as a story? They're like, no, this is the way it is. How is it that you work with people to be able to reflect on it and not get triggered by the suggestion that it is just a story?
Well, first of all, I think in most stories, people are running a lopsided perception. We either think there's more benefits and drawbacks, or drawbacks and benefits. You know, I mentioned that I've worked with many celebrities. And I remember the first time working with a celebrity, I recognized the celebrity, but the person beside me didn't. And I watched that when I displayed the recognition of who this person was, they then put on a performance of being the celebrity. And I remember turning to the person beside me, and I'm saying, do you know who that is? And she's saying, no, I have no idea who it is. And so I saw the difference on her reaction or lack of reaction versus mine. And so I thought, isn't that interesting? So, and what transpired was I never got to meet the person. I got to meet a celebrity putting on a performance. See? And so I think if we put them on the pedestal, we end up putting them in a pit. And that's what I'm talking about with the lopsided perception. We think someone's got something we don't have. So for example, someone who's super wealthy. We think they're super wealthy, so what do? We maximize them relative to ourselves, or we minimize ourselves relative to them. We think they've got something I don't have. And then we walk around the corner and we see some poor homeless person on the street begging. And what do? We put them in the pit. And we maximize ourselves relative to them. And we think they've got something I don't have. And both of them are an illusion. I mean, I really believe if you can spot it, you've got it. So, you know, in one hand, here's a celebrity where we think they've got something I don't have, but who sees you and I as a celebrity? Maybe it's our clients. You know, when we help them transform the fear and suffering, in that moment, they possibly see us as a celebrity. And then who sees us as a bum? But it may be the same client the following week. You see? So every single person, I believe, is a saint and a sinner. Everyone's there for you, stabbing you in the back, supportive and challenging, attractive and repulsive. And so I think that's part of the problem with the story is we're basically running a lopsided perception. You know, a lot of people, again, right now, just because it's timely with the pandemic, when you hear the talk of people, a lot of people are talking about the doom and gloom of this pandemic. But what if you flip that and run and say, what's the gift in this situation? What's the gift to countless numbers of people who are sick and tired of working in a cubicle? And now they get to work from home and create their own hours and spend time with their family. But what's the drawback? Now it's forcing people to actually relate to one another in the home environment. And so again, there's a benefit and a drawback. And when you can be present with that and have love and gratitude for what is, the benefits and the drawbacks, then you're no longer run by the lopsided perception which you are running. Okay? So the lopsided perception that you're running in turn ends up running you. So that's one part of the story. The other part is to ask 4 questions and a turnaround to see if that story is even true. Just because we believe it doesn't make it true. So we have a story, for example, that people should return my call. Well, is that true? Yes. And how do you react when you believe the thought they should return your call and they haven't? And all the childhood conditioning stuff may come up. You know, I feel rejected, my abandonment issues, I feel insignificant, or they're rude, or they don't care about anyone except themselves. And we go through this whole drama. Again, we're the script writer. And so who would we be without that story? If we just sat in the present moment and asked, who would we be without that story? They should return my call. We'd be free. So then we discover that our suffering has got absolutely nothing to do with the other person and everything to do with our story about them. They should return my call. Is that true? Yes. Can you absolutely know without a doubt what other people should do? No. Whose business is it? It's theirs. Whose business are you in? Theirs. See? I remember years ago when I first started traveling and working around the world, I was in the Turks and Caicos Islands down in the Caribbean. And we'd gone over to a little church service on Christmas Eve. And I'll never forget, on one wall, they had the 10 Commandments. And on another wall, the wall altar itself, was the 11th commandment. And that was called the North Caicos Commandment. And it said on there, thou shalt not be a busybody. And I thought, at first I laughed, but then the more I looked at it and contemplated it, I thought, this is so profound. It's the only one you need. Because as long as you're minding your own business, you're not in other people's business and you're not in God's business. And there's only 3 kinds of business: yours, other people's, and God's. And when you're in the last 2, you get pain to bring you back to your business. So again, whose business is it who people call and when they call? It's theirs. So can we absolutely know without a doubt that they should return the call? No. How do you react when you believe the thought? How does it make you feel? It makes me feel angry, upset, yada, yada, yada. Who would you be without that thought? I'd be free, peaceful. So can you drop the thought and turn it around 180 degrees and find where the exact opposite is truer? And that becomes, they should not return my call. Yeah, and I find 3 examples of how that's true. See? Then turn it around again. I should return the call to them. And maybe I should return the call to myself because I'm not listening to myself. You see? And so when you teach people that, so it becomes a modus operandi, it becomes a self-talk. No matter what's going on outside, they can start to investigate their story to see if it's true and find freedom in the now and almost immediately, you know. And I've been doing this in 11 countries, and I've never heard a story yet that still exists after applying these 4 questions and the turnaround. Not one. And I find that absolutely amazing. And all the different cultures that I've lived in, and different languages, and, you know, the cultural norms and programming, that there's not one story that still exists after applying those questions. And so what people discover is all it was a story. That's it. You know? And so it's extremely rewarding to help people make sense of their story and to find that freedom and to provide them with a tool that they can work with themselves. Because the last thing I want to do is to be seeing people again and again and again and again. You know,
yeah,
I feel that I'm not doing them a service if they're dependent on me or someone else. You know, and I think part of the problem with people is that they come from a place of, I need someone to fix me, because the perception is that they're somehow less than perfect, less than whole. And so before I step into a session, whether it's online or whether it's in a physical environment, I quietly recite a little mantra to myself that says, remember, Steve, you're not here to fix anyone, but to invite out who they really are. Because who they really are is complete, whole, and perfect until their story gets in the way.
So you
see, if I
just to pause for a second, that from what I understand, you're helping people meet reality as it is rather than how they expect it or think it should be, and
yes,
that gap is creating a lot of suffering. So you're
exactly.
helping those, just as you said, be more present and challenge that expectation, whatever it might be, that is causing an argument with reality.
Yeah, and see, I think, you know, if I'm honest, I've like yourself, David, I know we've had conversations in the past about this, but, you know, we've been on our own personal growth and development journey for many, many years. And we've come across many different bodies of work and self-help books and so on and so forth. And what I found was missing from a lot of those things was that we couldn't love reality until it was the way we thought it should be. You know? And so I realized that what if reality is perfect? What if it's a story about it that needs to be looked at? And I think that's where, as I say, I've seen so much transformations take place for people when they learn to love reality. And so in all of these others, not all of them, but many of these other personal development books, they were talking about the art of letting go. And to be honest, I don't think that's ever worked. it's a nice idea. But as Einstein said, you can't solve the problem with the same level of thinking that's creating it.
Yeah.
So therefore, there needs to be a paradigm shift. And what's the paradigm? Bob Proctor talks about it a lot. He says paradigms are nothing but a set of learned beliefs and behaviors, usually passed on from someone else, and not even ours. And so what I love about these 4 questions is that you're not letting go of the story. You investigate the story and it lets go of you. A little analogy is to think of if you were walking through the desert and you saw a snake and you jump back and your heart's pounding, you're frozen on the spot with fear. The adrenaline's pumping through your body. But then you manage to take another look. It's a piece of rope. You don't let go of the fear. It lets go of you. In the moment you realize what you thought was a snake was a...
Yeah.
It's impossible to continue to be afraid when you have that shift. And that's the same way when you work with these 4 questions. The pain and suffering that was there before, when you investigate the story, it drops. There is no letting go. It lets go of you. And so you end up with things that used to make you cry, made you laugh. You know, things that kept you stuck and was preventing you from going after your dream are no longer an issue. You're free to go after it. And the only thing that was stopping you was a thought, an uninvestigated thought that argues with reality.
Yeah, that is, I mean, in my experience, very true that we have these personal narratives that they're not even our own. We just inherited it from the environment or family or wherever, and we act as if it is true, and then it can just limit us, and we don't even see that. We just think, oh, it's the world conspiring against me to kind of create this misery. So how is it that you first kind of got into this work? Because I know you're from Glasgow, and it's not an obvious career choice for, especially, you know, back in the days. That wasn't probably, I mean, I doubt it was in your environment, like that personal development and life coaching. So how did you first kind of get into this work?
Well, my first...
Sorry about that, Steve. My Wi-Fi just went a bit haywire.
Yeah, that's all right.
Just hang on 1 second. I just can't hear you properly. Yeah. Can you hear me okay?
I can hear you, yeah.
Right. Just checking. Okay. So yeah, I'm just going to ask you that question again, because I think it literally cut just as I asked you. Let me just check what's going on with my headphones here. Could you just say something, Steve?
No.
No, don't say anything. Okay, cool. I think we're all good. So, Steve, how did you first get into this kind of work? Because it's not an obvious career choice. I know you're from Glasgow originally, and working as a life coach, working in emotional well-being, it doesn't seem like a typical path for somebody that grew up in Glasgow back in the day.
Yeah, I think when I left Glasgow, I was working in the dental field, making subperiosteal implants and stuff, and immigrated to Canada. Never in a million years did I ever envision myself doing what I'm doing today. And I guess it was a result of going through a divorce where I was forced to do my own inner work. And in, you know, that process, I discovered some of the greatest teachings, I think, on the planet. And I've met some absolutely amazing mentors. And, you know, one thing led to another. It was really, I think, by default. But I ended up, you know, studying Ayurveda at the Chopra Center in California. And I came back to Canada, and along with a friend, Jim Helfer, we created a Shirodara pump system to do some of the Ayurvedic treatments. And that got me, you know, selling them. And what happened was I got approached by a luxury resort in the Caribbean to set up the Ayurvedic program and purchase the equipment. And through that journey, you know, I've been doing body work and my own personal development courses. And I ended up working with a lot of high performance athletes from the Canadian national badminton team. And I really got intrigued by what made the gold medalist versus the silver. Why did one guy, you know, perform great when he was playing a club player, but when he was playing, you know, a high ranking player from, say, Indonesia, his whole game fell apart. And I would watch this, and I never knew nothing about badminton. I grew up playing football, soccer, as they call it in North America. But I realized that based on the story they were believing in the moment, they performed or they didn't. You know, based on the story about their body, if they were injured, whether they could come back quick or not. And so that really got me intrigued about this whole mind-body connection. And as I say, one thing led to the other, and I just kept going deeper and deeper on this journey of, you know, self-discovery, but also what I could then take and share with my clients. And so, as you said, you know, how did a boy from Glasgow end up here? You know, it's mind-boggling. You know, it really is. And in fact, it's the first chapter in my upcoming book. You know, how did a boy from Glasgow end up here? And that was a question that was asked of me by Mel Gibson. You know, not to drop names, but that's where that actual question came from. And it was interesting because the day before I worked with him, I was sent an email by a client in Canada saying, Steve, I know you're working with all these, you know, A-list celebrities now, but I think you'll find this article interesting. And I read the article, and it was about a young man that had been beaten up and left for dead, basically. He was mugged and his face was hanging off. He'd been beaten so badly, and they threw his body in the back of the paddy wagon to take it to the morgue. And they went over a bump, a speed bump or something, and he let out a gasp of air. And the attendant realized he was still alive and battered on the window and told the driver to take him to emergency, which they did. And so they saved his life, and they put his face back together again, but he was all disfigured. And one day he was in church praying, and a priest walked by, and he could hear him, he was sitting crying. And he said, "What's wrong, son?" And he said, "Look at me, Father, I'm a freak. I dreamed of becoming a movie star. And now the best I can hope to be is a freak show in a circus." And the priest said to him, "If you promise to devote your life to Christ, I will get you the help you need." And it turned out the priest's best friend was a top plastic surgeon. So they struck a deal. And the true story, and it's of Mel Gibson. And it was one of the reasons why he did that movie, The Man Behind the Mask. And so not even 24 hours later, you know, I'd said to myself after reading this article, boy, I'd love to meet him.
Yeah.
And it's amazing how fast the universe works. You know, that what you think about, you bring about. And as I say, not even 24 hours later, I'm sitting having a conversation with Mel Gibson. And he said to me, "How did a boy from Glasgow end up here?" You know, and I said, before I answer that question, I've got to ask you the same question. And I shared the article and stuff, and he said, yeah, true story. And I said, how did you end up here? And so he said, well, Steve, it all starts with decision. I could allow my past to define me or not. And I thought, isn't that what we all do? We can allow our past to define us, or we can create the life we want, because we're the script writer. We're the star. We're the director of our movie called My Life. And yet so many people will settle for other people writing the script for them.
Yeah.
I
think that's, I mean, an incredible story. And the movie analogy, I think, personally speaking, and I don't know how it was for you before the divorce, I think it's just the idea that I could be proactive and have autonomy on these things just hadn't even entered my mind, because nobody had told me. I just thought, oh, just see what life gives you, and that's the way it is. And I think a lot of people are operating from that because that's what we're taught. And families or teachers, people that are there to guide us, doing the best job they can, but they themselves haven't been able to understand that there is a proactive choice and an autonomy that can shape, it can change direction. Of course, no, things happen unexpectedly, such as COVID, but there is still a sense of making a choice and moving in a direction that isn't just, oh, wait and see what happens, which is what I was kind of brought up, that, oh, this is a good thing, this is a bad thing. Some people are lucky, some people are unlucky. And that was a story that I was very much brought up with, and many, many people are. And so for you, when you had the divorce, what was it that really made a shift for you to then get your life back on track? What is there any specific insights that you had that really helped you say, actually, whatever's happened, and I'm going to build a new life?
Yeah, I think it came down to, you mentioned their choice, and I think this is where we make the mistake. As you said, that we feel that we're choiceless in any given situation. And so, I discovered the work of Dr. William Glasser, choice theory, and he says that everything we say and do, we choose to say and do. And so I looked at that and I thought, and the reason we choose to say and do it is because we're innocently believing the story in the moment. You see? I remember the first, excuse me, the first time I was working down in the Caribbean, I got a call to help a lady who had been up all night with panic attacks, anxiety attacks, if you like. And the nurse said that they were ready to medevac her off the island and wanted to see if I could help her as a last resort. So I walked into the hotel room and the lady was propped up in the bed with an oxygen mask on. And in the hotel room was the general manager of the resort, the lady's husband, and the nurse, and now myself. And so I said to her, what's going on? And she said, oh, I had a panic attack all night. So I thought, well, why are you choosing to panic? And when I asked that question,
so that went down well.
The general manager put his head down and he walked out the room.
Yeah.
And she said, but I'm not choosing to panic. I was just laying in bed last night and I had a panic attack. So my next question, I thought, was fairly obvious. It was, so who were you in bed with? And her husband put his head down and he left the room. And she said, well, my husband. I said, so what was stressful about that? She said, nothing. So I said to her, has it happened to you before? She said, oh, yes, the last time we went on holiday. So now I see a correlation between holiday, panic attack. I said, tell me about that. She says, oh, we were climbing the pyramids down in Mexico. She said, I got halfway up, I looked down and I had a panic attack. I said, and that was the most appropriate thing to do, given the story you were innocently believing in the moment. And so she said, but eventually I went to the top. I said, and then what happened? She said, I had another one. I said, and then what happened? She said, I turned to my husband and I said, I can't go down. Now I see the correlation with husband.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, what did your husband say? She said, he said to me, then you'll have to stay here and die. Talk about brutally honest.
Yeah.
And she said, and in that moment, I realized I had to go down. I said, so a split second before he said that, staying at the top was your saving grace. And then in the very next second, it was, if I stay here, I'm going to die. It changed in an instant. And you made a choice. She says, oh my God. And so I said, so having these panic attacks gives you permission to do what? And gives you permission to not to have to do what? And what is it you get from it? And then she shared with me that her husband was a big shot in the CIA, and that their phone would ring in the middle of the night and he would just get up and leave. And he may be gone for 3 hours, he may be gone for 3 days, 3 weeks, 3 months. And because of the nature of his work, it was highly confidential and they couldn't discuss it. So she had no idea where he was, who he was with, and how long he'd be gone. And she said to me, for all I knew, he could have been round the block with his mistress. And so I then said to her, so what was the benefit in that? Because clearly she was running a lopsided perception that there was more drawbacks than benefits. So I simply had her stack up all the benefits to the husband being gone. And at first she couldn't find any. And so then, you know, he was a big bruising guy. And so I figured, you know, Monday Night Football in the United States is really popular. So I said, did your husband like Monday Night Football? She says, oh yeah. I said, do you? And she says, I hate football. I said, okay, when he's gone, what's the benefit? She says, I don't have to watch Monday Night Football and listen to him screaming at the television. I can watch my own TV shows. I said, great. What else is the benefit? I said, does he snore? She said, oh yeah. I said, what's the benefit? She says, I got a good night's sleep. And so we just kept stacking up all the benefits to him being away versus all she had was drawbacks. And so when we collapsed them, she had love and gratitude for what is. And we did, you know, some other work again regarding the anxiety attacks and stuff. But clearly, once she looked at her story, because it was a story that was leading to the anxiety attacks. Once she looked at her story and investigated it and found the benefits, then it no longer was running her. And the following day I ran into the husband and he shook my hand and said, thank you, I've got my wife back. I said, don't thank me, thank her. She finally looked at her story. You know, and so I've seen it again and again and again with people. And it doesn't matter what the story is. When you investigate the story, it lets go of you. And when you can collapse your lopsided perception to equilibrate your lopsided perceptions, then you're left with love and gratitude for what is. Because it's impossible to be frustrated at someone if you see a benefit to the behavior. We only get frustrated at them if we see that it's a drawback to us that they're behaving that way. But if we flip the coin and ask ourselves, what would the drawback be to us and them if they were to behave the way we wanted them to be? And so this again is our conditioning. We're only looking at one side of the coin instead of flipping it and seeing both sides simultaneously and saying, thank you, and having love and gratitude in our heart for what is. Because what is always perfect until a story comes along, you know?
And so how do you balance that with, I'm just thinking what some likely objectives might be. Some people might be, well, you know, I need to have standards of how people treat me or standards of what I expect in, you know, my work or life. How do you help reconcile that, you know, if somebody's brings that objection, say, to the way their partner's behaving, or something that's happening in their life or in work, for example.
Again, I have them investigate that story, that this person should be different. Now, if someone's not being respectful towards you, you have a choice. Do you want to continue to live like that, or you can leave?
Yeah.
You see? But it's not about them. The moment you make it about them, you become the helpless victim. And you're basically saying, here, you're in charge of my happiness. And only when, if and when you do this, can I choose to be happy.
So
whereas I like to say, regardless of what you say and do, I choose to be happy.
So you're not just, because I think that sometimes with this, there can be a misunderstanding that I'll just accept everything and get on with it. Whereas you're saying, accept the reality of the situation and then choose if you need to make some changes in your life.
Yes.
But rather than expecting other people to the room to revolve when you change the light bulb, you may have to make some changes yourself. So it's not saying just be passive and accept whatever life gives you. It's accept it, but then if you need to make some choices or you need to make some changes, do that with the full understanding that's your choice and your behavior to change.
Right. But you do so knowing that it was perfect, and you move forward in completeness versus lack.
Yeah.
You move forward with love and gratitude for that event being exactly the way it was, for that person being exactly the way they are. You see?
Yeah.
I mean, I remember working with a gentleman, and him and his wife had gone through a divorce, and he was saying to me, he was accusing the wife of being a gold digger, basically. And so I said, you know the old saying, if you can spot it, you've got it. I said, so where are you, a gold digger? He said, I'm not. I said, but we're talking about his partnership earlier on in the career partnership. I said, you stayed in the partnership for what reason? And it turned out it was the exact same reason that he was accusing the wife of staying in the marriage, for the lifestyle. I said, so she stayed in the marriage for what? And he says, her house in the Hamptons. He said, you stayed in the marriage for what? Or the partnership for what? And he said, a condo in Manhattan. I said, she stayed in the marriage for what? He says, her Mercedes. I said, you stayed in the partnership for what? He said, my Porsche. And it just went back and forth. And finally he went, my God, we're so alike. I said, that's probably why you married her. But now the relationship has ran its course. So you can move forward with love and gratitude for this woman being in your life. And you move forward in completeness. Or you can move forward, or try to move forward with this ball and chain around your ankle full of resentment and anger, thinking that she should somehow have been different. When the reality was, a lot of the reasons why she was the way she was helped you to become so successful in life, in your career. If you really look at it. And he said, oh my God, yes. So then he was at peace with moving forward, saying, thank you very much for being who you were.
Yeah.
And he could find the exact same traits in himself and see how that was a benefit. See, we think it's only a benefit to someone if we're nice and kind and supportive, but we don't see the benefit when we're not so nice, when we're unkind, when we're not supportive. You see, that's not life. Life throws us everything. And if we want to succeed in life, then we've got to love all of it. The pain and the pleasure, the sorrow and the joy, the darkness, the light. We have to be able to embrace it all and say, thank you. Next. Next. You know, we bring on the next lesson and the next lesson. And, you know, every teaching says the same thing. Until you get the lesson, you'll keep repeating it. And it's just that the players change on your movie, My Life. But they're all still playing the same role for you to get the lesson. And I really believe that lesson is to ultimately learn to love what is, no matter what is, because it's perfect. There's nothing in nature that's a mistake. The sun never sets too early or rises too late. You know, a flower never blossoms late. But we think somehow people can show up late for an appointment. They always show up on time. And how do you react when you believe the thought they should have been here and they're not? And again, you give your power away to them. That I can only feel good when you show up on time. Versus I can feel good if and when you show up. And if you don't show up, I can feel good. You know?
Yeah. It's like getting angry about the weather.
Right. So where are we not showing up for ourselves? You see? Again, if you can spot it, you've got it. And if we see that we're attracting people into our life that don't show up on time, where do we not show up for ourselves? And it's, you know, it's that mirror of relationship. You know, I like to say, mirror, mirror, just like me, you're the one to set me free. But it's like we get upset with the mirror when we have a bad hair day and we try and comb the mirror.
Yeah.
Bad analogy from a ball.
Yeah, I didn't want to make the joke, Steve, but you did it for me.
Right. So you start to see, you know, that it's never, ever, ever about the other person or the situation, but it's only always your story about it. And that's the good news, because you can do something about your story.
And I've seen, I know from working with clients and also myself, it's often the things that we, as you said, are lacking or maybe haven't fully integrated within ourselves that when we see it out in the world, we get most triggered by, because we haven't fully processed that aspect of our own, whether it's, you know, the being like tardy or late for an appointment or not showing up or whatever it is. If we see that out in the world, we get that much more triggered because it's a part of ourselves we haven't fully I guess matured past.
Integrated, as you say.
Yeah, integrated, yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
And so I know you've worked with, as you mentioned, a lot of people that had celebrities that's life you would, from the outside, perceive as they've got everything. What possibly could they need help with, or what possibly would they have to be miserable about? What, like, without, you know, naming names, but what are some of the kind of things that maybe shocked you from, because you mentioned yourself that you'd been a bit starstruck seeing certain people. Were there any things that really surprised you, or that having had that experience, you saw, wow, I would have never realized that had I not worked with them?
I think that what I realized that they're no different than anyone else, except their focus. You know, that's one thing I noticed where they're focused on. But really, the stories that they have are no different than anyone else from all walks of life. And as I've traveled the world, the most common story I've heard is, I'm not good enough. You know, that's the most common one. And you think, as I say, we look from the outside at someone who we perceive has got it all together. No, it's just a story, you know. And so, yeah, that's probably the most common thing I've heard is, I'm not good enough. Because we all suffer from comparaholism, you know.
Yeah.
We're busy comparing ourselves to the fantasy of what we think we should be. You know, and again, if we look at athletes and movie stars and stuff, their career is a very short career for the most part. You know, and they're always been, you know, in one decade they were the superstar, and the next decade they're too old. And so what do? Then they start resorting to all sorts of, you know, plastic surgeries and so on and so forth to try and make themselves look younger, to continue to be accepted for the next role. And for some, it may work temporarily, but deep down inside, they're not accepting themselves for who they are, where they are in their life. And so we think, they've got everything together, but really the story is just the same as a stay-at-home mom, same as the kid in Cambodia that's trying to survive on $2 a day. They still have the same self-talk. And I think this is where the education system around the world lets people down by not teaching them at a very, very young age how to investigate the story. That somehow other people's opinion of us is more important than our own opinion of ourselves.
Yeah, I think it's endemic, and of course I can understand why in schools, of course, you have to meet a standard. That's like how people get tested, but the net effect often is that we grow up with this kind of totem pole of I'm here, these people are there, and these people are below me, and that constant craving for validation is really unhealthy.
Yeah. Again, we keep looking outside for that which is within. You see. But there's no mistakes, there's absolutely no mistakes in who you are, what you look like, the height you are, the color, your eyes, they're all perfect. So you come along with a story that thinks you should look like someone else, you should be taller, you should be thinner, you should be smarter, you should be younger. Who would you be without that story?
Yeah, it's funny because I'm living in Thailand. I know you've lived here before, and I was just shopping just before the call. I was in the supermarket, and virtually every soap and cream you buy has like some whitening lotion in it. Literally, I couldn't find anything that didn't. I'm already white enough. I don't need to be any whiter. And it just is hilarious because I know back in the UK, most people, they want a tan. They want to they get a spray on tan. It's like fake tan, this tan, that tan. And I thought these same companies that are selling these skin whitening products in Asia or Africa or wherever, they're selling the tanning products in Europe to try and make people feel like they're somehow lacking, like they're the wrong color. If only they were a bit whiter, or if only they're a bit more tanned. And it's just, it's like a bad joke,
Yeah, so they create the problem and then provide a solution.
Exactly, you're the wrong color. Don't worry, we've got this product that will make you. It's insane.
I've thought about this idea for a number of years now, and it would be to have women of all different ages for a short documentary to film women of all ages from all walks of life, from first world countries to third world countries. First thing in the morning, they get out of bed and they look in the mirror, a full length mirror. The viewer would only see their eyes and hear their self-talk. But the woman would look at their naked body in the mirror first thing in the morning. And I think it would be alarming to hear the difference in the self-talk between the third world countries and the first world countries on what people have been told that their body should look like. The whole beauty industry is built on it, telling people what you should look like. Look at the fashion modeling industry, with the big to-do about, underweight models, and now you're starting to see, people speaking out about it. And so, again, it's nothing but a set of programs and stories that we've bought into. And the body's never the problem. It's just a story about it, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, and it's hard with the culture around you is telling you, no, you should look like this, or you're the wrong weight, or you're the wrong color, or you're the wrong whatever. But trying to conform to that, it's all right. But then you go to a different country and they've got a whole different set of standards, and you're like, oh, hang on a sec. And I mean, that's one of the beautiful things. If you have the opportunity to travel, you kind of get to see, oh, hang on a sec, like all these rules that I was brought up with don't apply, because I'm living in the Caribbean now, or I'm up in Thailand, or I'm wherever you might be, and they've got a whole different set of standards, and people seem to be doing all right. That, you know, the sky hasn't fallen in, life seems to be going on, and you're like, oh, hang on a sec. Yeah, is that true? These things that have been brought up to believe.
Yeah. And this is where, again, this is where you get to do your work on they should, they shouldn't, you know. Just because that's the way it was done in the UK, for example, doesn't mean it's going to be done like that in Asia or in the Middle East. But you catch yourself right away. Yeah. They should, they shouldn't, they must, they can't, they always, they won't.
Yeah, and that comparison game. It's
So who would you be without that story? You know, we're busy getting upset with the waiter because he's not paying attention, and we're trying to wave our hand to get his attention, and we get upset because he doesn't see us, but he's facing the opposite direction and the eyes are in the front of his head, and we think he should see us. And we get upset and we blame him. But we're believing a lie that people could see through the back of their head.
Yeah.
You know, and so again, who would we be without that story? We'd be able to be present in the moment with the precious present. You know, it's called a present for a reason. And so when we can be present with what is and love what is, that's the greatest present we can get, you know. But when we get taken out of that because of all our absolute statements, they should, they never, they can't, they won't, they always, insanity.
Yeah, I like what you say there about being present to what is, and treating it as some, you know, with gratitude, because it's what I've realized through the work I've done, even with the emotional experience we're having, it's the same thing with, you know, whether we're in sadness or anxiety or happiness or excitement. If we're trying to fight what we're feeling, like I shouldn't be this upset, I shouldn't feel this sad, often it's not even verbalized because it's just so instinctual, but it's that fight against the present, and it just proliferates the problem. And it's just being willing to feel whatever you're feeling and allow it to pass and allow it to do whatever it needs to do. But the story, the thinking around it just creates, we just kind of keep ourselves stuck. And it's exactly as you're talking about, that story about I shouldn't be feeling this, I should be feeling that, and I'm not willing to feel this, I need to feel that. And it just kind of keeps people trapped in these repetitive cycles.
Yeah, it's like the hamster on the wheel. But when you take the time to investigate that story, that's where the freedom is. You know, and I just wish that more and more people could be exposed to this way of thinking, to really get to the truth, you know, because it's, and all the great spiritual traditions, they all say the same thing. It's the truth that shall set you free. It's not about right and wrong. It's the truth, you know, and what was the truth that happened? Great. Now, what was the benefit? And initially people will say, there was no benefit. But when you go deep and really start to investigate, there's always an equal benefit and a drawback. But again, we're being conditioned, you know. So what could be the benefit in cancer? What could be the benefit in losing your job? What could be the benefit in the pandemic? You know. But there's a gift in every event. And so get into the habit of asking yourself, what's the gift in this situation? You know? And there's always a gift. Even if that gift is the gift of not being able to recognize the gifts yet. That's a gift, you see? Because when should you recognize the gift? Only when you do.
Yeah.
And that becomes another layer of, well, I've done all the self-help books. I've done all the courses. How come I'm still here? I should be there, but I'm here. Okay, let's go there. Is that true? This is where you are, but that's where you should be. How does it make you feel when you believe that story and you're not? So who would you be without that story? Free. Free to what? Free to go there or not.
Yeah.
You see? But it's like thinking I should be in Thailand when I'm in Greece.
Yeah, and this was something, you know, it's really tough. When I went back to the UK, I was in that, for that story, oh, I should be in Thailand, because I had to go back to the UK because of the COVID situation, and then I couldn't get back for the visa. And I realized, not immediately, I mean, I wasted a couple of months, but there was that frustration of, oh, this shouldn't be happening. I should be able to get back, and this is not fair. And of course it was frustrating, and it was upsetting that the place that I'd started to build a life, I literally couldn't get back because of COVID. But I was creating suffering that was unnecessary through that story. And you know, meanwhile life continues, and I was just angry at the reality of the fact that we couldn't travel. There's a pandemic and you can't get in because the borders are closed. So I mean, it still happens to the best of us, and you know, no matter how, I think however much work you've done, we kind of get these blind spots. But like you said, when you can investigate it, then you're like, oh, hang on a sec, I'm just fighting reality here.
Yeah. And I think the other piece of the puzzle that I came across several years ago now was that cause of all the negative emotions is a disturbance in the body's energy system. And that was really an eye-opener for me, because until we work with the level of the story and the level of the energy system, I don't think we get truly lasting results. And the way I like to describe the energy system is, if you think of the electricity in your house, and if you come home at night and you hit the light switch and nothing happens, the darkness is a symptom. That's your fear, your worry, your anxiety, your insomnia, your back pain, your constipation, you know. And so we're being conditioned to treat symptoms. They say there's a pill for every ill, right? So what would we do? We change the light bulb. And then we hit the light switch again and nothing happens. And if you're Scottish, you think, I've just wasted a good bulb.
Yeah.
Because we're cheap. So then you think, well, okay, if it's not the bulb, it must be the breaker. So you open the cupboard and sure enough, the breaker switches off. So you flip the switch back on, you come back to the living room, you hit the light switch, the light comes on and poof, it goes right back off again, and the breaker trips again. Only then do we look and see that we've got too many appliances plugged into the one outlet. Well, those appliances represent life: physical stress, mental or emotional stress, chemical or nutritional stress, and electromagnetic fields. And anytime we bring too much, too fast, too soon into the body's energy system, the body's built-in circuit breakers, which are the acupuncture points, they switch off. And now our light goes out and we end up with signs and symptoms. And so what I discovered many years ago was energy psychology, or tapping, emotional freedom techniques, where they say that the cause of all negative emotions is a disturbance in the body's energy system. And so how I typically work is I work with bringing in the 4 questions at the same time, tapping on the body's energy system, resetting the circuit breakers. So investigating the story while it lets go of you, and at the same time, flipping the breakers back on so that the energy is running smoothly through the body. And then there's 14 energy meridians in the body. Each meridian is governed by an organ. Each meridian has a group of muscles, and each meridian has a group of emotions. And so when people present with, a pattern of thinking, it tends to manifest as physical symptoms in the body, in specific areas in the body, based on what that emotion is and what that meridian is. So for example, the emotions of fear, worry, and anxiety, they're all governed by kidney and bladder meridian. And so what I've seen in the last few months, more so than ever, is people with the psoas muscle in the body testing weak or tight. And the psoas muscle is governed by the kidney meridian, you see? And the psoas muscle is one of the most powerful muscles in the body because it joins upper and lower body together.
Yeah.
And oftentimes when the psoas muscle's tight, the hips go out of alignment. And emotionally, the hips tend to go out of alignment anytime we have a major decision to make. Should I stay? Should I go? Mm-hmm. There's a kind of conflict, a push and pull going on in the body. And so again, when you look at what's taken place around the globe in the last 18 months with this pandemic, is people so undecided about, should I stay in this marriage or go? Should I stay in this job or go? Should I stay in this country or move to another one? Even in Canada, people are deciding to move from one province to the other because each province has got a different set of rules and regulations. And so there's this torque going on in the body. But what the reality is that people can get up and move, but the story goes with them. You see? And so once you address the story and the physical body and the energy system, then it seems to be much more lasting and permanent results. So I think it's fundamental that everybody learn to investigate the story now more than ever during this whole, pandemic that's going on, because I think people are really being tested here, and the people who have got the skill set to make sense of what's going on and to be able to love what is, those are the ones that will be able to flourish. But the people who don't have that skill set, I think it could be quite traumatic for them, but again, that's my story, so I need to look at that one and see, is that true?
Yeah.
Can I absolutely know that without a doubt? Who knows? So it's been able to find that gift in the now, the power of now, as Eckhart talks about,
Yeah.
Let's find that.
Yeah, I think it's important, as you said, that the combination of physical and mental, the two do very much go hand in hand, and taking care of your physical health and nutritional health, as well as obviously your mental health, the two are very much in alignment. And sometimes people just focus very heavily on the one thing without looking at how the two are connected.
Yeah.
So I know now you're starting to do some work online, and could you talk a little bit about what the plans are for your online coaching. And I know you very generously offered to anybody that's watching this that you would have an exploration call for 20 minutes with them.
Sure. Yeah. Because I think it's all about the relationship. You've got to feel comfortable with the people you're working with. There's so many people have got very glossy websites out there and great marketing material, but are they delivering results? And I think that's the deciding factor. And being able to work with someone that you've got a connection with. It's not about working with everyone. I don't believe we should.
Yeah.
And I don't believe that it's in the best interest of them or me, but it's about, having that 20-minute conversation to see if we're a good fit, and to be able to do, having a conversation just like you and I are having. 20 years ago, this would never have taken place. But to think that you're sitting in Bangkok right now and I'm in Greece, and we can have a heartfelt connection. And I think it's fantastic that we can both you and I can be offering our services to people around the globe. The only thing you really have to take into consideration is the different time zones. But other than that, it's not like you have to find a parking spot or find a babysitter or whatever, right? You can sit in your pajamas and have a session, and really work on the source of what's keeping you stuck, and to help people find that freedom, and to help people learn to love what is, all from the comfort of your own home. All you need is a phone and a connection, or a laptop and a connection. And so I'm really looking forward to sharing that around the world right now, because I've been called more and more to do that, to really start to offer more online services to help people, that maybe not have the ability to travel or to go and see someone because of lockdown.
Yeah.
So what if there's available support out there where you don't even have to leave your home? And so I think this is a prime opportunity for people like you and I, David, to get our work out there, to be able to be of service, and hopefully be handsomely rewarded in the process. But from the number of years I've known you, and I think you'll feel the same way with me, it's not about the money. It's about being of service and being able to help people. And I truly believe when you do that, the money will follow. It's never been an issue, but it's really about helping people to find that inner peace in the midst of the chaos that we're seeing around the planet right now. There's so much uncertainty going on, but where is the certainty? Again, it's flipping that around and finding where is the certainty. That people are feeling insignificant, but where do they feel significant? People don't feel a sense of love and connection, but where is that love and connection? It's always there, it's always there. Yeah.
And so what's the best place if people want to get a hold of you or speak to you? How can they reach you?
The best way right now is just through my email address, ambienthealth@mac.com. I have a website up and running shortly, but for now, ambienthealth.com is the best way to get a hold of me. And then we can just set up a Zoom call like this.
Great. Well, I'll put a link in the description. It's been great speaking to you, Steve. And
likewise.
Thank you for joining us today. Thank you for watching. Please subscribe. And if you enjoyed the video, hit the like button, hit the bell button to be updated on all the latest videos. You can check me out on Instagram at David Bailey Life Coach.